I still remember the smell of the sea that morning, soft, salty, and familiar. It was the kind of morning that carried memories on the wind, and mine came rushing back all at once. I hadn't been back to the village in nearly 10 years, but every street, every sound, every whisper of the ocean reminded me of her. Sofia. Sofia was my first love. The kind of love that felt too big for two people, too fragile for the world we lived in. We met when we were 17 in a little cafe by the harbor where she worked part-time after school. I used to sit by the window pretending to read, just to watch her laugh at the customers. She was sunshine in human form, all warmth, all light. Back then, we thought love was enough. We were young and foolish, believing that the world would bend to our dreams. But life doesn't work that way. I left for university in Rome, chasing a future that I thought would make me happy. Sofia stayed behind to care for her mother, who had fallen ill. We promised to write letters, real handwritten letters, every week. And for a while we did. Her handwriting always smelled faintly of coffee and sea breeze. She'd write about the tourists coming to the cafe, about her mother's health, about the cat that kept sneaking into their garden. I wrote back about lectures, about loneliness, about how nothing in Rome felt like home. But then, one day, her letters stopped coming. At first, I thought it was the post delayed or misplaced. Then I sent another letter, and another. Weeks passed, then months. Nothing. I tried calling, but the line was disconnected. I thought maybe she decided to move on. Maybe she'd met someone else. So I buried myself in work and told myself it was over. Still, every night before bed, I'd open the box under my desk where I kept all her letters. I'd reread them until I could almost hear her voice again, until it hurt too much. Years passed. I graduated, got a job as a photographer, traveled through Europe capturing moments of other people's lives. But no matter how far I went, a part of me was still sitting in that cafe by the harbor, waiting for her to look up and smile. 10 years later, I came back. Not for her, or so I told myself, but because my father had passed away and the house needed sorting. When I arrived, the town hadn't changed much. The cafe was still there, though it had a new sign and fresh paint. The harbor still glimmered in the afternoon sun. And then, on my second day, I saw her. She was standing by the pier, her hair longer, her expression quieter, older. She was holding a camera, the same model I used to own. For a moment, I couldn't move. It was as if time had folded back on itself. "Sofia," I said softly. She turned, her eyes widening for a second. Then she smiled, a hesitant, careful smile. "Luca." Hearing my name in her voice again broke something open inside me. We stood there for a long moment, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, I laughed nervously. "I didn't think you'd still be here." "I could say the same," she said. We ended up walking by the water, like we used to. She told me her mother had passed away 5 years ago. After that, she started teaching photography to kids at the local community center. And then she said something that made my heart skip a beat. "I tried writing to you," she said quietly. "Every week. For a year." I frowned. I never got anything. She looked away, biting her lip. My letters came back. They said your address didn't exist. It took me a few seconds to understand. The post office had made a mistake. When I'd moved dorms, I'd updated my address, but apparently, the old forwarding system failed. Every letter she'd sent must have been returned. All this time, both of us thought the other had given up. I felt my throat tighten. "Sofia." She shook her head gently. "It doesn't matter now. You're here." But it didn't matter. All the years we'd lost, all the words we never said. We spent the next few days together, rediscovering the town, retracing old steps. The cafe, the hill where we used to watch sunsets, the small bookstore where she'd once bought me a notebook for my photos. Everything felt both new and familiar, like walking through a dream I'd had too many times. One evening, As the sun melted into the sea, we sat on the beach in silence. The waves licked the shore, the world glowing gold around us. "I kept all your letters," I said quietly. "Every single one." She looked surprised. "Even after all this time?" "Especially after all this time." I reached into my bag and pulled out the box, the same one I'd carried with me for years. Her fingers brushed against mine as she opened it. Inside, the letters were still there, yellowed, fragile but alive. She smiled softly as she read the first one, then another, and another. After a while, she whispered, "I used to imagine you reading them, even when I knew you weren't getting mine." I took a deep breath. "Do you ever think about what might have been if none of that had happened?" She met my eyes. "All the time." Then, with a small smile, she said, "But maybe this is how it was meant to be. Maybe we had to lose each other to find each other again." That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked down to the pier, the moonlight painting silver trails on the water. The village was quiet, only the hum of the sea and the echo of old memories. When I turned around, she was there, barefoot, wrapped in a light shawl, her hair dancing in the wind. "I thought you'd be here," she said. I laughed softly. "You always did." She walked up to me, close enough that I could see the reflection of the stars in her eyes. "I wrote you one last letter," she said, holding out a folded piece of paper. "The one I never sent." My hands trembled as I took it. The paper smelled faintly of lavender and salt, just like before. "Read it," she whispered. So I did. It wasn't long, just a few paragraphs, but every word felt like a heartbeat. She wrote about how she'd never stopped thinking of me, how every photo she took was her way of holding on to something she couldn't forget. And at the end, she'd written, "If one day we meet again, I hope we've both become the people we were always meant to be. And if love still lives somewhere between us, I hope we're brave enough to find it." When I finished reading, I looked up. She was crying, quietly, beautifully. I reached for her hand. "Sophia, love never left." And then, finally, after 10 years of silence, we kissed, the kind of kiss that doesn't feel like a beginning or an end, but like coming home. Months passed. We didn't rush things this time. We built slowly, morning coffees, evening walks, laughter over old stories. Sometimes we'd sit by the sea, not speaking at all, just listening to the waves. I started teaching photography with her at the community center. The kids loved her energy, her patience. I loved the way she looked at the world, as if beauty was something you could always find if you just waited long enough. One day, I found her sitting at the cafe by the harbor, a notebook open in front of her. "What are you writing?" I asked. She smiled. "Letters. For us. Just in case." I laughed. "You still believe in letters?" She nodded. "Always. Because sometimes the words we never say are the ones that keep us together." I sat down across from her, pulled out my pen, and wrote the first line. "Dear Sophia, if you're reading this, it means I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She read it and laughed, her eyes shining like sunlight on water. And in that moment, I realized something. Love isn't about timing or luck or letters that get lost. It's about showing up again and again, even when the world tries to keep you apart.